I'm going to try today to again attempt to show why you cannot trust what the end times speculators and hobbyists say about anything going on in the world. And the reason I'm going to say this is they keep changing their own rules. They keep changing what they've said in the past into the latest thing that's going on in the news, and then they try to say that that's the Bible coming to pass right before our very eyes. And that just keeps shifting with the news. So I'll show you what I mean. Here's a relatively new posting by Jeff Grider on his website, Now the End Begins, and he basically is saying here, and I'll try to get this all to fit. So he says, Palestinian Authority president now claims that they are the biblical Canaanites. Zechariah tells them what their fate shall be. Okay, so basically he posts this story about Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas says, hey, we're the Canaanites, we were here first. It was the land of Canaan, and Israel came in and took over thousands of years ago. So we actually are the original possessors and owners of the land. Now, okay, let's leave aside all the political stuff about that and forget about the argument over that. Jeffrey Grider is using this as a proof that we are now really in the end times. The end is really beginning now, or has begun, or is further along than it was yesterday because of this statement by Abbas. In fact, down in the comments, he says this, think about it for a moment. Zechariah says that at the second coming, the Canaanites will be removed from the land, right? So in order for that to happen, just like Israel had to be regathered, the Canaanites also must make an appearance. Now wait a minute. This guy's a relatively prominent end times hobbyist, or I think he's actually a professional now. He's moved into that area, territory, because he now makes money off of all this. Just like Israel had to be regathered, the Canaanites must make an appearance? Why wasn't this true last Tuesday? I mean, all we've been hearing about for 50 years, at least, is May 14th, 1948, Israel became a state again, and that is the big sign of the end. And that's what we need to be watching. Israel is God's prophetic time clock, and everything else can happen now because that happened. And here's this guy coming along and just saying, yeah, you know, but the Canaanites also have to make an appearance. He has never said that. He spent the better part of 3 years telling people, first of all, bragging about how he predicted Trump would win the election, and then telling people May 14th, 1948 to 2018 is the 70-year mark. Oh my goodness, we could really see the end come on May 14th, 2018. He just hyped it and hyped it and hyped it. He never once mentioned, you know what, guys, it probably won't happen, though, because, you know, the Canaanites have to make an appearance, and they haven't yet. Do you see what I'm saying? Where in Hal Lindsey's books and thousands of videos has he ever said, well, the Canaanites have to make an appearance, too, because that's part of the whole thing? When has anybody ever said that? When has J.D. Farag ever said that? Let me play you a clip here and then show you a quote to make a more obvious point. Here's Prophecy Watchers, Gary Stearman's little attempt at becoming the next Hal Lindsey. August 16th, 2019. One of his guys says this.
Bible prophecy is happening in front of us today at such a rapid pace. I mean, we're sitting here this morning and we're watching China on the border with Hong Kong. We're watching Donald Trump at war with CNN. We're watching America at war with Iran. We're watching.
Okay, so again, when did anyone say in the past, before this man started talking, like 10 years ago, well, China and Hong Kong have to be at war, so just we can't get all excited, folks. The rapture's not soon because China and Hong Kong aren't at war. Not to mention, the U.S. is not at war with Iran. I mean, is he trying to say there's going to be wars and rumors of wars, and these are just examples? Because he had plenty of those 10 years ago. Why are these wars important all of a sudden? Again, I'm going to repeat myself. No one ever said that Hong Kong and China are going to be at war in the end times. So how is he pointing to that as a sign all of a sudden? Here's a quote I want to give you from a publication I have. At this point, let us take a look at the world and see what its state is. Suppose our hopes and aspirations are here rather than in heaven. What would you have? Where has the world drifted in just the last 10 years, apart from any thought of the sure judgment of God, soon to break over this scene? What is the world's outlook? The period of the last 10 years is almost insignificant as a measure of time, but is probably the most epochal decade out of thousands of years. Wow, that sounds a lot like something someone said just last week. Why would you even put any aspiration here when we're soon to see God's judgment coming? We have 10 years, maybe? Christian Truth Magazine, August 1959. Surprised? Well, I have dozens of examples of this. Here's Russia's Destiny, a book written in 1896, guys. Not even the 1900s. Israel wasn't even a country yet. Oh, reader, the times are moving quickly. The coming of the Lord draweth nigh. The nations are falling into line. I hear that a lot, don't you? Yes, the dispensation of the fullness of the times is at hand. I'm not using this to mock people. I'm using this to show you no one knows what the heck they're talking about. Why is J.D. Farag all of a sudden, just because he's Middle Eastern, all of a sudden he's a better expert at all this than these last people were? Let me just show you the dishonesty of J.D. Farag. Ready? Here's J.D. Farag talking to Jan Markell over the phone or something, and she makes a point about the Middle East that he answers very interestingly. Now pay attention to what he says here.
The converging alignment of the Ezekiel 38-39 nations, the Gog-Magog alliance that's going to come against Israel in the latter days, and you said in 2017 that you stopped saying this is future tense in 2017. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that even as recently as 1 year ago, certainly 2 years ago, I could not stand before my church congregation, as is my privilege to do every week, and say that the Ezekiel 38 nations will at some time yet future be in alignment, because now they already are. As
J.D. Farag just said, I have not in the last year or so, which would take you back to 2017, 2017, 2018. I can't stand up there and say it's a future thing, because they are. Let me play it again just to be sure you hear this.
The Gog-Magog alliance that's going to come against Israel in the latter days, and you said in 2017 that you stopped saying this is future tense in 2017. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that even as recently as 1 year ago, certainly 2 years ago, I could not stand before my church congregation, as is my privilege to do every week, and say that the Ezekiel 38 nations will at some time yet future be in alignment, because now they already are.
Now they already are. I wasn't able to say that until about a year or two ago. But here he is in 2013, August 11th. See, it's too bad for JD that all of his stuff is recorded, because we can hold him accountable. See, here are people getting up in the name of God, standing behind their pulpits in authority, and telling people that this is what God has told me to tell you, and it's about the future, which is insane to start with. Nobody should ever do that. Ever do that. You don't know the future. God has not told you the future. So you really should watch yourself when you're standing up in front of people and saying, God has shown me what the future is gonna be. You know why? Because eventually the future gets here, and we all know whether you were right. And so far, J.D. Farag has been 100% wrong.
In these verses, the prophet Ezekiel lists by their ancient name all of these nations that are going to be directly involved, and then the ones that are indirectly protesting. So they're involved one way or the other in this attack against Israel. What makes this prophecy so interesting and really exciting is that the nations that are listed here, like with the Psalm 83 list, are already today perfectly postured in position prophetically. I know that's a lot of P's. And it's evidenced by the numerous headlines that we just read.
One more time, he said, all of these nations are perfectly prophetically positioned.
Great plunder. I would encourage you in your testing, so they're involved one way or the other in this attack against Israel. What makes this prophecy so interesting and really exciting is that the nations that are listed here, like with the Psalm 83 list, are already today perfectly postured in position prophetically. I know that's a lot of P's.
See, he's 4 years earlier saying that they're already there. They're already perfectly positioned prophetically. Did he just forget that he said this and thought, oh yeah, that was just a year or two ago, and he's just forgetting? I can give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit, but I don't think so. I don't think he remembers when he says stuff, but I think here's the point. The guy says stuff like this every week. Every week, it's always, well, here we are, we're right there, we're right there, we're right there. He and a couple of others jumped on this bandwagon last January, well, this past January of 2019. By the way, everyone has forgotten about this news story, I guarantee you. Nobody when I bring this up, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I forgot all about that. Here's Tom Hughes back in January, breathlessly reporting the massive shift over in the Middle East when Donald Trump announced that he was withdrawing troops from Syria.
I look at this and I can't help but say, wow, this is amazing. As we watch, there we have Russia being a guard for the troops that are with them. They're staging just north of Israel in Syria. We have the Golan Heights, the mountains of Israel. The Jews gather back into the land, and then the United States announcing we are pulling out of Syria. Why is this a big deal? Because the prophet Ezekiel goes on to say that at best, the rest of the world, when this invasion happens, at best, the rest of the world, including America, will only protest and say, Russia, why are you doing this with Iran and Turkey? Why are you coming against Israel? Are you coming to take their spoils? Are you coming to take their energy? Are you coming to take their oil, their gas? Why are you invading Israel? The United States at best will be a protester with Saudi Arabia. And you're looking and go, wow. In other words, Israel's going to have no one to defend them in that day. Why?
Right, wow, he says. Trump pulling out of Syria is part of that prophecy. But nobody said anything about that just a few months earlier. No one ever looked at, J.D. Farag. You just heard him saying in 2013 that everything is perfectly positioned. Here's Tom Hughes a few months earlier in August. He's talking about the same exact thing, the same situation in the Middle East.
So let's put all this together. Is it a coincidence that right now these nations are each experiencing economic crisis? And the prophet wrote that a reason for them to attack Israel is due to financial reasons, or taking plunder, as the Bible calls it. Is it also a coincidence that in just the last year, Russia, Turkey, and Iran have formed an alliance for the first time in history, just as the Bible says? Is it also a coincidence that all three of them have troops on the ground in Syria, which sits immediately to Israel's north? And the prophecy even states that the alliance of these nations would attack Israel from the north, and the battle would be on the mountains of Israel, which is the Golan. Wow. No one was expecting this alliance.
He left off the last thing. Well, obviously, the U.S. can't be in Syria anymore. They have to withdraw, but we're really close. As soon as we see the U.S. withdraw from Syria, that will complete the whole picture, and we're really going to be on our way. He never said that because he wasn't thinking it, and now he's thinking it because now it's a few months later and more information comes in. So and many of these guys like J.D. Farag were jumping on this bandwagon. Oh, Trump pulling out of Syria is a big sign. It wasn't a big sign for the last 10 years. Nobody said one word about it. Do you think these guys are flailing around a little bit? Do you think they're kind of making it up as they go along a little bit? Do you think they actually really know what they're talking about? Or is it all just watching the news and speculating one after another, day after day, changing their story whenever it makes sense? Suddenly, you have to have Canaanites in the land. You can't just have Israelites in the land. It's never been talked about in the history of speculation about the end times. Not once has anyone ever said this. That's just unbelievable. So, guys, you cannot trust these people. They are not serious about what they're doing. They really don't actually believe any of this. They're only talking about it because it's fun, it's exciting, and they're getting an audience. They're getting an audience, and that's what drives them. Be careful.